All right. Hey, everybody. If hopefully you guys can hear me and see me, I apologize for the technical difficulties. The platform that I was originally using wasn't working for some reason, but nevertheless, thank you all who have joined us for the Content Library Challenge. My name is Whitney B, and I am your host, and I'm super excited to be here with you guys for day 5. So I know we have a lot of groundwork to cover, so I want to make sure I'm respectful of everyone's time. So, again, thank you to all who had an opportunity to join in and watch this particular live. So, with the challenge, I'm going to go ahead and start with our agenda. So, we're going to talk a little bit about what you've been able to accomplish this week, and then we're going to get into some of the nitty gritty of actually setting up a content strategy. We've talked all about content this week. We talked all about figuring out how do you leverage content through repurposing. We've also talked about, how to really set up your content library. But I want to talk to you about some of the frameworks that I think is most important for you all to learn when it comes to distribution, because that's truly the key to creating great content. And then I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about custom GPTs. We touched on it in the beginning of the week, but the custom GPTs is really going to be clutch if you're truly trying to leverage AI for your advantage. And then at the end, I'll share a quick Q&A. So if there are questions that you guys need answered, I want to make sure that we do that. And then we'll announce the winner. So I've had an opportunity to draw the winner, so I wanted you all to stay tuned for that particular winner. And then we're going to talk about what's next. So, what's next on the agenda for Speakerazzi? So, today I want to first dive into all of the content types. So, you all are familiar with things like blog posts, videos, infographics, etc. But ultimately, when I look at content, it really breaks down into 4 different buckets. The first is original content. So, original content is content that you create from scratch, it's content that is authentic to you. I'm not talking about like private label rights content or the MRR content. I'm talking about content that you are specifically creating using your brain and your genius. Next, we talk about repurposing. So that was all about repurposing yesterday. And repurposing is simply taking an existing piece of content and putting it into a new format. And then we have collaborative content. Collaborative content is something that's really important, especially if you are a new business and you're in that growing phase. Collaborative content is essentially you collaborating with someone else to curate a special type of content that adds value. So think about your podcasts or your videos, or if you collaborate with someone on an article or a webinar. Collaborative content is great because it allows you to get in front of someone else's audience, right? We see that a lot on Instagram. Sometimes people will do Instagram takeovers to get new followers. In a content sense, that's something else that you want to consider. Who can you collaborate with in your network that has a like audience that will allow you to truly get in front of their audience and share the value that you have, and vice versa? So it's really important to have a servant based mindset here, but ultimately understand how collaborative content fits into your mix. And then you have curated content. So curated content is essentially when you take multiple pieces of content and you curate it under one thing, or you can curate different responses, right? So if you're in LinkedIn, sometimes people will do a curated article where they'll talk to multiple experts who will share their expertise. And ultimately, they'll curate a list of people who respond to a specific question. I do that very often. I use a website called Featured, and oftentimes I am someone who they source to get a quote specifically about content marketing or branding. And then my quotes would usually appear alongside someone else. So again, it's really curating responses from multiple people. And it's not necessarily something that you have to create, but again, it kind of takes some level of curation of those who are around you. So I want you to kind of think about those content types, right? You have all 4 of these different types. And ultimately, you want to think about how do you incorporate these in your strategy. So, one thing that I think is most important to consider is something that I call a content continuum. So, a continuum is something that keeps going on. So, it changes over time. And I truly believe that as an entrepreneur, your content is going to grow and evolve over time. And I want to provide some perspective on what that will look like at different phases of your business. At different phases of your business, it will require you to make more original content. At a certain phase in your business, it might require you to repurpose more. So, I want to talk to you a little bit about what those phases business look like? So with the content continuum, you have three steps. It's really build, accelerate, and grow. When you are first starting out, you're in that grind stage, right? You're building, and essentially you're creating as much original content as possible because it's very likely that you don't have any. But then you want to go into your acceleration process. So acceleration is when you're getting into that phase of business where you've gotten comfortable, you've gotten past that 3 year mark, and people have started to recognize you and know you for your brand. And then ultimately, when you're in that growth stage, that's when truly are people are truly recognizing you as an expert. People are referring you. You're the go-to person, right? So you are someone who has really established yourself in your industry. And so when we look at it, I want you to think about what kind of elements you have to look at. So 0 to 3 years, right? So this is your experimental stage again. So in this stage, you are experimenting with your brand. You're trying to figure out what content is actually going to resonate with your audience. Again, a lot of this content is brand new because you're starting from ground zero. And this is really the time where you want to start developing your brand assets. So you want to get those testimonials, photos, B-roll, all the things that we talked about that goes inside of your content library. And then you want to go and build relationships. So I talked to you all about collaborative or curating relationships. When you're first starting your business, this is a great time to do that because, again, this is content that you want to leverage later. I'll give a specific example. I recently just did some videography. It's been a minute since I've done videography, but I did a a video for a conference this past week in Columbus, Ohio. It was important for them to leverage that brand video because they're planning on doing this conference for years to come. So it's really important that they get those initial testimonials and they get a sense of what's going on at the conference. So when they're selling this in the future, people have a visual of what that looks like. So again, this is a great example of someone who's building and they're in that beginning stage. Let's talk about 3 to 5 years. So again, you're someone who's popping, you may have some sales and clients, and people are starting to recognize you. This is really when you want to start to get into repurposing, right? You can start to understand how people are using content, and ultimately, this is an opportunity for you to start to figure out, okay, what worked for me in the past and how can I allow for me to work in the future? Again, this is the level where you start to get a little bit more strategic about how you create content. Whereas when you first start, you're kind of like throwing everything at a wall to figure out what's working. But once you really start to get a grip on what works, this is truly where you want to start to be a little bit more strategic. This is a phase where you're starting to incorporate more systems. So maybe you're using a CRM, a customer relationship management system. Maybe you're using an email system. There are things, maybe you're using a social media scheduling tool. You're finding those tools that is helping optimize your work. And then ultimately, you've narrowed down your marketing channels, right? So a lot of times we make the mistake when we first start. We think that we have to be everywhere. We stretch ourselves thin. When you become a little bit more mature, you start to look at the analytics. You start to say, okay, where am I making the most money? Which platforms are bringing in the most referrals to my business? And that's where you focus your attention. So typically when people are in this phase of their business, they're starting to be a little bit more strategic about how they're creating content and where they want to show up. And then finally, for my OGs, the people who have been in business for a while, 5 years plus. So you have a healthy content marketing mix. So typically, when you're in this phase of business, you probably are incorporating original content, repurposed content, and curated content, right? You are someone who's considered to be a thought leader. So people are seeing you as a trusted source. And then ultimately, you've established your own original content platform. This is where we see a lot of people who have video series or podcasts, right? They come in because they have this expert knowledge. And then you're strategically understanding how your marketing platforms will make sense. So again, you are really trying to hone in on where these platforms are going to make the most sense for you and your business. So I say all that to say, when you are starting, and if you guys have a workbook, so for my VIP members, there is a sheet inside of your workbook that helps you audit your content. But for those who don't have the worksheet or the workbook, this is something that I want you to take note of. Many of you are familiar with the SWOT analysis. The SWOT analysis was developed at the Harvard Business School in the 1970s, and it has been widely adopted by companies all over the world to understand how their business is performing. I want you to take those same principles and I want you to apply that to your content. I want you to analyze what content that you have, right? That could be your social media content. It could be your website content. It could be your blog posts. Anywhere where you are trying to reach customers and gain referrals, I want you to think about how you can conduct a SWOT. So with a SWOT analysis, it stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So your strengths is, why is your content performing performing well? Is it great visuals? Is the captions resonating with people? Are you creating connections? You really want to understand how you're building relationships. Then you want to look at weaknesses. How can it be better? Could you have better branding for it? Are you not so great of a copywriter? Could you be using Chat GPT to give you some stronger copy? So you ultimately want to understand what are some of the weaknesses around your content. And then you want to look at your opportunities, right? So, what are things that you could do to further enhance? So, remember, we talked about collaborative content. So, who is it that you can partner with to get your face and your brand and the value that you bring in front of their audience? Are there new types of content that you should be creating? Or are there opportunities to stop certain pieces of content? Or are there opportunities to repurpose content? And let's say you repurpose something that you've done for free and maybe you make it into a digital product. You want to think about what are those opportunities that you can find with the content that you currently have. And then finally, what are the threats, right? So for a lot of us, a big threat is we're so busy working in our business, we don't have time to look at social media trends and some of the things that may impact the distribution of our content. You want to be strategic about thinking about what are the things that could possibly impact how my content will be portrayed and ultimately how people will receive my content. So, again, for those of you who are watching, make sure that you do a content SWOT analysis. This is something that I recommend that you do at least once a quarter. You should always be looking at your content to understand what has given the most impact and what most importantly has brought you in the most revenue. So when it comes to content strategy, there's a couple things that I want to know. So I circle original because most people get caught here, right? So most people get exhausted by the thought of creating content because they think that they have to continuously do new content over and over again. But in reality, there are two overlooked strategies that I think are most important. We talked about repurposing yesterday, which is taking a piece of content and turning it into new formats. But I want to talk to you a little bit about content distribution. So content distribution is something that people are not leveraging. Now, content distribution is really important because there are more than one ways to share a piece of content, right? So I'm going to show you guys an example of what that could potentially look like and also give you a great resource of a great book that I want you all to read. And so I want to talk to you about some of the distribution tools that you can use to further enhance how far your content will go. So before we do that, I do want to also share something that's most important. A lot of times people will ask me, Wit, when is a good time for me to actually create new content? You know, like when is it most appropriate? So I wanted to give you an idea of what that looks like. So if you're a spanking brand new business and if you don't have any existing content, yes, you need to be grinding and creating content. If you're rebranding your business or a personal brand that operates in a new niche, you have to create new content. I use myself as an example. You guys have seen me started to brand myself in the AI space. Although I've been working in AI for probably the last 3 to 4 years, I've never actually branded myself in this space. Most people know me for content marketing. So now you see that I'm incorporating new AI tools, hence this challenge, because again, this is a way to keep people at the top of mind. So if you've experienced this challenge, when you think about Whitney Barkley, hopefully you think about, oh, that's the girl who knows AI. She can help me create AI tools for my marketing. So you really want to think about how you can rebrand your business. And when you do that, what type of content should go with it? If there are any industries, techniques, or strategy developments that impact your clients or how you do business. So if there's an update in your industry, that's something that you need to share. So again, going with the AI example, AI is changing rapidly. You guys saw that this week Chat GPT just did something totally new, right? So I have to keep people in the loop. That is a reason for me to create new content. If you're launching a brand new event, if you launch a brand new event, you want to make sure that you're sharing new content. Yes, you can repurpose some things, but you're going to have to show the speakers, you're going to have to show the agenda and things that are happening. And then finally, any new mindsets, epiphanies, or shifted approaches in how you operate as a person or a business. So if you don't have a certain mindset anymore, it's important to communicate that with clients because your mindset is ultimately what attracts people to you as well. So for those of you who had that question, I wanted to make sure I addressed it because it's really important to think about when it's time to create new content. Content creation is exhausting, and you really want to make sure that you are very strategic about when it is that you're creating new content because we really want to focus on repurposing and distribution. So going back to distribution, this is a really great book. It actually just came out last month. It's called Create Once, Distribute Forever. It's by a gentleman named Ross Simmons. I've been following Ross for a number of years, and I would be remiss if I didn't share something that I picked up from him that's really important. So he's really big on content distribution, right? So a lot of times, again, we create something, we spend all this time creating a piece of content, and then we let it collect dust and we don't ever come back to it. So when I started to follow Ross, he came out with a really great checklist. And this is a snippet of that checklist that I want to share with you all. So, one of the distribution strategies, and he's done it for Facebook, LinkedIn, Reddit, a number of other places. And if you go to read his book, he will list that for you as well. But with the distribution, you see that on Facebook, he has 14 different ways that you could be distributing content. So you can share it on your company page, share it on your personal account, use Facebook advertising to distribute it to a broader audience, share it within Facebook groups, comment on Facebook groups when people ask questions about the topic, add value before you put in the link. So there's multiple ways that you can distribute on one platform. It's very likely that many of us may be doing two or three, but here he's listing 14. And it's very similar for things like LinkedIn, for TikTok, and all of the other platforms. So I want you to really wrap your minds around, how often am I truly distributing the content? Am I just posting it and am I going, or am I truly, ultimately thinking about how I can distribute this over and over again? The key to distribution is understanding that you want to create something called evergreen content. Evergreen content means if someone looks at it 5 years from now, it's still going to be applicable and it's still going to be great. So it's really important for you to understand that, when you are creating content, be strategic about making sure that it is something that people can consume in the future. Now, don't get me wrong, there's still going to be times where you're going to have to do things that are going to be outdated and timely, like the AI thing that I just talked about with you guys. But ultimately, if you create things that matter and that's answering people's questions, because most of the time, our clients are probably going to have the same problems over and over. The difference is, once you solve someone's problems, you have to look for other clients who have the same problems. So people are always going to have the same problems. So you want to make sure that your content is addressing the answers to what people are looking for when it comes to those specific problems. Another tool that I want to share with you all that I absolutely love is something called SmarterQ, smarterq.com. If I had more time, I would go through it with you all, but I'm trying to be more conscious of my time. So I just wanted to share a few screenshots of what that looks like. So this is the dashboard for SmarterQ. For those of you who know me, I have a children's book. It's called Hey Black Girl. And the thing that I love about SmarterQ is that it basically repurposes on your behalf, right? So it's distributing everything on the background on a cycle. So if you notice, you'll see that on the left-hand side, it says, Hey Black Girl promotions, affirmations, events, news, user-generated content. These are all categories that I have described for my brand, probably very similar to things that you put inside of your content library. And the beauty of it is you can put as many posts as you need to under each category and come up with a schedule. So, let's say for my Hey Black Girl brand, on Mondays, I want to post motivational posts at 7 o'clock. And let's say I upload 20 motivational posts, it will recycle all 20 of those posts over time. And I'm gonna tell you, if you're someone who's really busy and you don't have time to post all the time, this is your best friend to make sure that your distribution continues to go. Because I'll tell you, there was a time where I went dormant. I wasn't sharing anything for Hey Black Girl because I was focused on something else, but I still made sure that my presence was shown. And people will often say like, girl, you're everywhere, I always see you. And I'm like, no, that's the SmarterQ. SmarterQ is everywhere. So I want you to have an understanding that there are tools that will essentially create that distribution on your behalf, but you just have to create a strategy around it. Now, SmarterQ is great. They have AI tools. If you notice at the top, they have an AI caption writer. And so let me tell you the cool thing about their caption writer. So if you select their caption writer, it will curate a status essentially, but it will give you like 3 or 4 different variations. You literally can say, I want to use all of these variations. And let's say you attach it to a picture. So they will repost that same picture, but will give you a different caption every single time. So it is a really great and valuable tool. So I definitely encourage you all to look at it. And finally, something that I do want to note about the tool is that the queue that you could create, you dictate it, right? You can run it on a schedule. You can say you want to run it, every Monday at 7 or whatever that schedule that it looks like. And then the beauty part about it is you can recycle after posting. So if you post something once, you can indicate, hey, please recycle this post, and it will find a place for that post. So again, this is a great distribution tool that you're able to leverage as well. Something else that I want to share, I shared this in the original content library challenge, but it's called If This Then That. So If This Then That has been around for a long time, and essentially they connect two systems that don't speak to each other. So I'll give an example of one that I've used. So one of the ones that I've used in particular, did I put it on here? Oh, I might not have put it on here, guys, but I'll share a little bit about it. So I have a tool that on here, if I post a Facebook status, my Facebook status, the copy will go to an Excel spreadsheet. So it's a Facebook to Excel connection, right? So think about things that you do. So maybe, as you guys are building your content library, maybe you don't want to go back through all of your posts. When you create future posts, maybe you don't want to go through all those things and try to copy and paste it and put it into your library. If you want to do that, you can connect, whatever social media platform to an Excel sheet or to a Google Doc, and it will literally copy all of those posts on your behalf. So if this, then that is great. They have a free and paid version. There's a few that you can do inside of the free version, but I would highly encourage you to check it out because it can help with distribution, just in terms of making sure that you're able to capture old content or send out new content. This thing, when I was very active on X, formerly known as Twitter, it would send out a welcome message to everyone that followed me, right? It would say, thank you for following. So you can set up some automations inside of this tool. So, one thing that I want to note for you all is that most people are struggling with content creation because they have not developed a clear funnel. And so, a funnel is something that's really important, right? A funnel is essentially how you bring people through a cycle or through a process. A lot of times, business owners, like, we have products or services, but we haven't figured out how to create a ladder approach, right? So, in business, we often see that there is a value ladder. So, in that value ladder, maybe you have a lower level product all the way up until a higher tiered product. So, it's really important to think about what that could look like. So, what I'm going to do, and hopefully you guys can still see it, and forgive me, this is a brand new thing for me. There is a chat GPT, and everybody, give me a thumbs up or say yes in the comments if you are still able to see my screen, if you are still able to see, because I should have chat GPT up. Hold up, let's see. Can everybody see it? I'm almost afraid to stop sharing. Oh, share this tab instead. Okay, cool. So it should do it now. Let me know if you guys see it. Okay. Yes. Okay. So perfect. You guys see Oh, perfect. You guys see chat GPT on the screen. Awesome. All right. So I want to give an example. So I've already created a pre-caption, and I'll share this in the comments with you guys after I'm done. But let's imagine that you're a publicist, right? I've worked with publicists in the past. So I have a publicist that I've worked with. She has a book. Her book, let's say her book is $27. She also has a class where she teaches people how to do their own PR for $250, right? And maybe she has a done for you service where she charges, starts at $3,500. And so I created essentially a prompt, and it says, what type of funnel would you build for a publicist who has a book about how to generate your own press for leaders, experts, and business owners? The book is $27. She also sells a class for $250 that has a takeaway of a full PR plan. She also has agency services starting at $3,500 for people who don't want to do it themselves. Please develop a full funnel with offer ideas at each part of the customer journey, along with the suggested email sequence. So I'm going to ask ChatGPT to create that. So it's still reading my prompts. Ignore the hey black girl because it's still thinking about my custom instructions. But you see how it breaks it down by awareness, interest stage, consideration stage, conversion stage, loyalty stage. So it's thinking about at what point of the customer journey people should interact with specific things. And so that's something that I highly encourage you all to look at, is understanding, how does the customer journey work? A lot of times we just think, we have to promote. But the key is, what are the problems that we're solving at each stage to someone's journey? So let's see what it came up with, right? So in this funnel structure, we start with an awareness stage. So it says that I can do a free downloadable checklist called 5 Quick Tips to Generate Media Buzz for Your Brand. And then it's giving me ideas of doing a social media campaign, highlighting the tips from the book, featuring testimonials from successful users. So it's giving us an idea of how to essentially create leads, right? So awareness, this is our lead magnet stage. Then we have your interest stage. So they say start an email sequence. Start with the introductory email that shares a successful case study using the checklist. Follow the special offer in the email for a book at a discounted price of $20 for a limited time. I can also offer a webinar entitled Master Your Media Presence, where the publicist gives insights and teases content from the book. So it gives every single thing that you could potentially do. And if you guys have not already done this, think about what your funnel looks like. Again, if you're selling multiple products and services at different price points, it has to make sense of where people are. There are some people who are not going to start with you and pay $2,500 for a coaching service, right? They have to build trust with you over time. And so the purpose of the funnel is to make sure that you're building trust with these customers over a specific period of time. You don't have to always start with the free lead magnet. That was a big trend several years ago. People are still doing it now, but a lot of people are starting with smaller lead magnets. Maybe they start at a lower price point. And one of the things that you want to think about too is just to consider the economy, right? Like, how are people spending money right now? I had a friend who went to a Dartmouth presentation a few weeks ago. They're doing like this program for entrepreneurs, and one of the discussions that they shared was, in this economy, a lot of people are not trying to drop money on high ticket products. They were encouraging them to think about how can you create low ticket offers at higher volume versus having less clients and making more money at a higher price point. So, you want to think about those things. All those things can be a consideration as you are building out what that funnel will look like. So I highly encourage you. Again, I'm going to share this particular prompt example. Please replace all the information that I have with your own, but I highly encourage you to build a funnel, because the funnel will allow you to be more strategic about your content. Because I think a lot of people get confused. They don't know what to post because they don't know the strategic order of how things should go. So I'm going to make sure that I share this with you guys as well. I'm going to go back to my other tab. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I'm going to actually go back to Chat GPT because I want to show you something else too. So within Chat GPT, there is something I wanted to share with you all, and it's called Custom GPT. So Custom GPTs, if you've been following me for the last few months, I've been doing several workshops on Custom GPTs, and this is a feature that I really want to make sure that I emphasize to you all. A Custom GPT allows you to take your own data, input it in Chat GPT, and provide it with training. So if you participated in the challenge on day 2, you guys did custom instructions, and the Custom GPT application is very similar to custom instructions. So it's really almost like a way to practice to create custom GPTs. Inside of Chat GPT, you'll notice that there are multiple GPTs. So there are literally people who are creating thousands, and these GPTs can be private, so you don't have to share it with the world. You can share it with the world, or you can share it with a limited amount of people. So you're able to look at some of the different types of GPTs. So they're showing the ones that are the most popular, like an image generator. They have a Write For Me one. Canva has its own GPT. And even though I love Canva to death, I'm not a fan of their GPT. I'd rather use the platform, but it's continuing to evolve over time. You'll see GPTs by Chat GPT, and then they have multiple types of subjects. So one of the things that I want you all to understand is that GPTs are going to be the way to make money. If you guys remember the start of the Apple Store, when people came out with these apps and then people were able to monetize the apps, GPTs are going to be something that's going to be monetized as well. So OpenAI is going to do something similar, where they're going to partner with creators, and you get paid a certain percentage of your GPT, right? So that is going to be something in the future, but there are other ways to make money from GPTs outside of that, and that's something that I share in my custom GPT class. Now, just to give you an example, I want to show you all something. So let's say we want to look at one of the GPTs. Let's try this Write For Me GPT. So I'm going to start the chat. And so it's going to give you a couple of different things. So I'm going to just select one just to look at what they share with us, right? So this is a GPT that someone has created. So they're giving a 1,000 word analysis on the future of a GPT. So again, this is something that someone has created from the back end, and they've put in their own data. So you can create your own thing. So I want you to think big and imagine how this could be impactful for clients, right? So let's say you are a consultant, maybe people maybe people look at you for advice. Like, I'm looking at some of the people who are on the live. I know some of you guys have podcasts, right? So let's say you took all the transcripts of your podcast, you put it inside of your GPT. And then when people have questions or need advice, they can go to that GPT and it can be curated straight from your podcast. So instead of you always manually giving out information, maybe you can direct them to that GPT where they're going to get customized advice that you've already talked about. It's in your voice, and ultimately receive the advice that they would need without you stopping to taking the time to do it. So again, custom GPTs can be a really great opportunity as well. And again, when it comes to content creation, if you're not trying to sell it or push it out to someone else, by designing your own GPT, you're going to better the language and further emphasize how your GPT should sound within your brand. So, really quickly, I'm going to go back to our demonstration. All right, so I am back inside of our presentation. And, that is really the sum of what I wanted to share with you all. I really wanted you all to start to think about what that strategy is going to look like when it comes to developing your content. I don't want you to just create aimlessly. I want you to create things that is intentional and has purpose. And so, one of the things that I wanted to share with you, just as far as what's coming up next, I am running my custom GPT workshop again. That's happening on June the 2nd, and it's going to be from 3 to 5 p.m. This is a hands on virtual workshop. Many of you guys have actually already taken the workshop. And, this is a workshop where you learn how to build your own custom GPT and build it in real time. It's a 2-hour class and it's very informative. Some of the things that we look at is, again, how to generate revenue with GPTs. I spent quite a amount of time talking about that. We actually plan out your custom GPT. So we truly build the GPT before you put it inside of the platform. And then we go through tutorials and I show you different use cases and you get an opportunity to practice. So if you are interested in being a part of this class, the doors for the class is open. The class is valued at $297, but as a person who's participating in this challenge, I'm sharing this with you all for $77. You just have to use the code challenge when you actually pay for the class. So it is a discount code using the word challenge. You can use this QR code if you are interested. But again, this is really kind of like the next step when it comes to Chat GPT. Again, I try to provide you all with kind of what you're able to do with the free version, within the capabilities, but really the next level is understanding how to build these GPTs, because these are really going to be next level assistants inside of your business. And so, what I would like to share next is our winner. So, our winner of the competition of the week is Pamela Stone. So, Pamela, if you are watching, you are the winner and you have won a seat inside of the custom GPT class. So, Pamela, the class will be at no cost to you and you have a seat inside of the custom GPT class. Thank you for everyone who has participated, sharing the homework, and really just, being just great in terms of interaction. I love the interaction and I love the abilities that you guys were able to show just in terms of taking the information, absorbing it, and truly putting it into action for your business. And so I want to take a real quick second just to do a quick Q&A. I don't know if there's anything that you guys had in terms of questions. Cool. I love it. I love it. Yes. I love that. So if there is any questions that you guys have, please let me know. I definitely want to make sure that I'm answering anything. And the questions don't have to be related to anything that I did today. If there are questions about anything between days 1 through 4, I'm definitely open for those questions. And so, as we're generating, a couple of things to note. If you have participated in this challenge, please take some time today to reflect on the week and just think about what you've learned, right? Write it down and really think about what action steps you want to take. I know I shared a lot, but if you can find 2 to 3 things that you want to implement on a regular basis, I challenge you to really think about that. And then I also challenge you all to think about how you can ultimately update your content library. This should be something that you should be doing on a monthly basis. So make sure that you're consistently looking at your library, making sure that you're adding your assets to the library to ultimately make sure that your library is something that's up to date and ready to go. So I truly appreciate that. Let's see. Alicia said my computer kicked me out. Can you recap the custom GPT class? Sure. So, really quickly, the custom GPT class is happening on June the 2nd. It's happening from 3 to 5. That's a Sunday. It's a 2-hour experience. It's very hands on. So I like to pick on people in the class. I try to keep the classes very intimate. Typically, I do anywhere between 10 to 15 people per class. And it's really an opportunity to walk through building a custom GPT. So if you need to share your screen, show me what you're creating, that's an opportunity for me to give feedback and help you understand how to train the GPT over time. So again, this is you ultimately creating your own GPT and the GPT is really just your source. So I'll give an example. In my business, I have a service called a Speakerize exclusive where I interview people, right? And so when I created the Speakerize exclusive, every time that I work with my client, I have to generate a list of questions to ask the client. And so I'm like, okay, how can I train my GPT? So every client that I work with has to do a questionnaire. I upload that questionnaire inside of my GPT, and it ultimately creates curated questions based on what the feedback that the client gave me inside of that questionnaire. So now I don't have to spend time thinking about, what are the most thoughtful questions that I need to use for this client, because now the GPT is creating it for me. And what I did is I trained it with old questions that I used from previous interviews, so it knows the types of questions that it should be asking per client. So that is an example of a custom GPT. That's how I use it in my business. I would say maybe previously it would take me 30 minutes to 45 minutes to think of really good questions after going through the questionnaire. Now I can confidently say my time has been reduced to about 10 to 15 minutes. I may have to tweak a couple of things, but ultimately it's not a time consumer anymore. So, if there are things in your business that you're like, like, is there something that I could do faster? Is there something that I could be more efficient at? This is a great class to understand what ultimately you can do to build a GPT to take something off of your plate. That's awesome. She said, I think I can use that for my customers. Yes, thank you. Wonderful. Great question. Do you guys have any other questions for me? And, if there are not any other questions, for those who are VIP members, thank you so much for participating and for watching the videos and for accessing the VIP. For those who are watching now, these videos will be available until Monday at 12 o'clock. So on Monday, May the 20th, the videos will not be accessible inside of the group anymore. But for those who are on VIP, you guys will receive a link to access these videos. You'll have lifetime access to the videos so you can catch up or watch anything that you are looking for. So thank y'all so much for being a part. This really makes me excited. I was so excited just to do this and just to really try to remix what I've created a few years ago. And again, I'm just elated for the participation, the questions, and just the content that you've been able to continue to make. So please continue disrupting out there. I am only a click, a phone call, a text away. So make sure that you reach out to me if you have any questions. If you want to know more about my business is www.speakerazi.com, where you can learn more about some of our services. But other than that, I am going to sign off, and I appreciate you all for being a part of this live.